going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support. Hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back to the Skinwalker Review edition of the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Before we get started, just want to say a couple thank yous. First, KGRADB. We have our live show there every Thursday from 3 to 5. I want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all the tunes here on the show. I want to say thank you to you guys out there, my audience. Thank you guys so damn much. I see you guys here full force. I just love. I'm back, baby. Skinwalker Ranch dressing is back. Seriously, there's like a few names that you would be in the Mount Rushmore of best names on the internet. Skinwalker Ranch dressing. I love it. Want to say this show will be available on iTunes, Spotify. So if you're listening on the road, leave us a rating review. That would be very helpful. Want to say also thank you to the Patreon members, the YouTube members, the Super Chatters, and my moderators. You guys are amazing. If you can't support us with the almighty dollar, do not sweat it at all. Everything on this show is 100% free. So go check out the podcast, everything, the YouTube channel. There are no paywalls here, so enjoy. Also want to let you guys know that we have a merch store right below the video. So check out the merch store. It's really easy to click. And if you can't do those things, don't worry. Just like, share, subscribe. That goes a very, very long way. So if you like the content around here, we always endorse you doing that. So let's get started with our review, shall we? Episode 3 of Skinwalker Ranch. Let's bring in the panel. Jazz, Rather, Cristina, Jane. I feel like I'm assembling Voltron here. Are you ready?
I don't know.
Jazz, do you know what Voltron is?
Yes, I do. I've never watched it, but I'm aware of the cultural reference. So.
Okay. Cristina, do you know what Voltron is?
Just like Jazz, I've heard of it, but I've never watched it.
I'm going to assume Rather and Jane know, just because I feel like I if there was two people here that...
I have two guesses.
Damn. It's kind of like Power Rangers way before Power Rangers.
Oh, I was going to say like something like Transformers.
Yeah, I thought it was Transformers
pretty close.
As well, right?
Yeah, pretty close. Pretty close. Anyway, all right.
We probably have some toys upstairs from the
it was definitely
toys in the house.
Thing. Well, all right, you guys. Well, I think when we all got into the pre-lobby, we were all pretty excited because we were like, this was an awesome episode. And I'm happy that I saved my perfect scores. Because I have a feeling this is going to be usually by the time you get to episode 3, there's a lull in television anyway. That's usually when they cram in their not so fantastic episodes. And then they usually say episode 8. And then of course, episode 10 and episode 1 usually are like the big ones. But this was pretty good. I was pretty happy with this episode. So let's start. I will start with Rather, and we'll work our way down all the way through Jane. So Rather, where do you want to start with this? I mean, we could obviously start with the plan to get the plane and do a sweep of the triangle area. But I mean, first impressions of the episode.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty insane what happened to them, right? When they were hearing themselves being played over the speakers. There was just so much weird stuff that happened. I was a little disappointed they didn't dig into, search for bugs and stuff like that. And we can get into the specifics, but at a high level, I was very entertained. I thought it was a lot of very interesting stuff happened this episode. Still, I think it raised a lot more questions than it answered, but I was impressed.
Yeah, well, and also just FYI, if you guys are watching this episode and you don't like spoilers, we're gonna spoil every single thing. We're gonna break down every moment. I really got my notes. We're gonna spoil the hell out of the show, so just FYI. But Jazz, first impressions of this episode.
I agree. There was a lot of tasty stuff in this episode. There was a lot of food for thought. We were mentioning backstage, they keep dropping these nuggets that I'll be honest with everybody. We can get into it later. Today, I filed 2 FOIA requests based on this episode because they got a lot of interesting stuff going on. But the thing about the plane, and I know we're going to get into this, I will give you my first impression. They had in previous episodes going up in a plane and they're getting warning signals and failures of equipment and, you know, with the helicopter and things and, oh, everything's changing. The data's all wrong. Looks like it could be a flight safety hazard. My first question about the episode, and we can talk about this, is that, oh, well, we found this weird spot and a lot of bad stuff happens and we were really worried. Let's go find this nice lady with a Cessna and send her up there and go, hey, can you fly through this about 20 times? And she's like, oh, yeah, totally. And I was watching the whole time. I was like, really? What are you doing to take care of this girl? Because, you know, she seems really nice, but did you tell her you might be flying into aliens? I don't know. You know, there was a question I had. So,
yeah. Cristina, what are your thoughts?
When it came to Kendra the pilot, what I did notice was Eric couldn't stop smiling. He was excited for the testing. He was excited to be in the plane with her. I mean, that like we almost never talk about Eric. He's the guy that does like practically all of the testing backstage. There's a lot that he does that we're just not familiar with. So I really enjoyed seeing him smile so big, probably for the first time in 3 seasons. But what I think something that I loved so much is kind of right into the intro, we got to meet John Dover. He is such a big deal. For those that aren't familiar with him, take a look at his work. Not only is he a Navajo ranger, but what he studies in particular is the paranormal in skinwalkers as well. Like that was kind of his research field. And so seeing him on the show, I was fangirling just a little bit. I was like, oh my gosh, he's on the show. So that had to be one highlight out of many for me in this episode.
Wow, that's cool. I when I was watching this episode and I saw that part, I was like, I have a feeling Christina's gonna really dig this part. But
no
I had
way.
no idea.
No
you know,
way.
I really did. I did think that, but I didn't know the history behind that gentleman, the Navajo Ranger. What was his name again? I'm sorry.
John Dover.
John Dover. Okay.
So he's one of the very, very, very few people that is part of the Navajo tribe that actually has done some deep research into the Skinwalker, because for those that look into it, for those that speak of it, it can attract it. Like that, this is their mentality. So it's very much taboo to do the research on an entity like this one. But then you have John Dover that's stating, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go for it. And he's collected some pretty amazing information. He has spoken to people that he believed to be witnesses to this entity. And his research is fascinating.
This is a pretty funny joke. His brother's Ben Dover.
Yeah, I'm aware of that joke.
Okay.
I was not, just because that was the first time I've seen it, so it was funny for me. And this was also a pretty good one. I'm a fangirl for UCR, so.
I mean, same. But I feel like with John, I think he wanted to arrest the Skinwalker and jail it and do research on it. So I just my favorite part was him.
Yeah. Well, Jane.
Well, see, that's why you watch the UCR Skinwalker Ranch live stream, because you get nuggets like that. I had no idea there was a whole fan base around him, but that was definitely my favorite part of the whole episode. Was the well, I don't know if it was my favorite part. It was really entertaining episode from start to finish. But as far as what's piquing my curiosity the most, it's the ranch and the petroglyphs and all the stories behind it and how it links to other ancient perhaps symbols and around the world and other places too. So yeah, I loved that. I kept fact checking throughout the episode, expecting for something to fall apart, but everything I looked up that I knew how to look up, some stuff was way over my head, checked out. So Dr. Taylor was appears he was right about all these conclusions he was coming to. I was even curious about the Cessna and if it appears always on the ADSB, because I was looking Google and Cessnas can track a little weird, but then they resolved it within the episode. They acknowledged that. So yeah, I felt, just like you were saying when you started out the live, I thought it was awesome. I like this one.
Yeah, like I said at the beginning, it's tracking as if each episode's just getting better and better and better and better. And every time I see the preview for the next episode, I'm like, damn, dude, like it feels like it's just getting better. And the thing I really dug about this episode was that nothing felt forced at all. Everything felt supernatural, not like supernatural, but it felt like there was no manufactured sense of drama. It was just a really clean episode. The experiment was, when I first saw it, let's just talk about it. When they first started planning this experiment, the first thought in my head, and I'll tell you why my thoughts on this changed later, but the first thoughts on my head, I'm like, again, with running an experiment where I feel like the variables are so much less uncontrollable than if you just put all of this equipment in like 10 balloons at different heights and just tether them to the ground. I keep just going back to that, and I don't know when or if they're ever going to take our advice on the balloons with the equipment in them. But I feel like, golly, why do we keep going to planes and rockets and helicopters? I feel like all of those things are cool, but and maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's more of a production choice to go that route, because the balloons are just boring as hell. There's nothing super exciting about those. But I think if you put those up in episode 1, and then you come back and look at the data in episode, let's say 9 or 10, I think that would be awesome. But anyway, I did change my tune on that thought a little bit through the episode. I feel like you want to say something, rather. What do you got?
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And the other thing that I kind of called out to me, I mean, eventually they did get interesting results, but why just have GPS devices up there? You know, what are they hoping to learn from GPS tracking? Why not put, radiation detectors and magnometers and like other sensor suites to get more information if you're going to do stuff like this?
Well, maybe Jazz could enlighten us with that. I mean, are those sensors workable on a plane, like radiation sensors and those types of things, or are those a little more? I mean, maybe it's just the equipment would be too heavy for a Cessna. Could be as simple as that. I don't know what kind of equipment it would take. That's why I'm kind of leaning on Jazz here. What do you think?
Well, it depends how much money you have, first of all, and how much you're willing to invest in it. You're not going to mount the stuff that we're looking for on a Cessna. Let's be honest. I went and dug into that already after watching the episode. My first question, we were talking about this in the pre-show, was they already had a helicopter. They already had a lot of sensors. They sent up and it was like, wow, there's something weird, and it can affect your readings on the ground, and they're looking at radiation and all this stuff. So what can we do? Oh, here's this nice lady that I know. She's got a Cessna. Why don't we send her up there? And she's got basically almost nothing. And yeah, that was one of my first questions about the episode. But
she came at the recommendation of Brandon Fugel's brother.
Well, yeah, sure. Pilot. And the helicopter had a lot more equipment than that Cessna had on it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't send her, but it did sound a little risky. But she agreed to do it. So I found that interesting. We'll get into the tech stuff a little bit later. But I just thought it was odd that that's how you're going to continue to collect data when there's been so many anomalies already. And some of those we had another one pop up this week. It's like, I'd like to ask the government about this, because they're out there looking at things. It's like, what are they trying to measure? What exactly is the data they're trying to pull in? They know there's something weird going on. That one system, and Jane already referred to it. I didn't even write down the name. I went and Googled it a little bit. That really is just a tracking system to show where a craft is in the airspace at any given time. And if it doesn't show up, there can be an explanation for that. But when the people in the plane are suddenly getting no responses when they were before and after completely, then that's an anomaly. That's really weird. And I don't know if the plane was fully equipped to gather the best data they could do. And the conversations that took place, down at the control center later, I agreed. I was like, maybe there's a better way to collect that data.
Jane, what did you think about the experiment?
I wonder if, just getting the Osiris to just drive around the triangle and collect data at different spots without not necessarily around a specific rocket launch or test. Yeah, I think it leaves a lot to be desired. And I wonder sometimes, I don't know if this is edited in congruency, if things technically happen in the order that they happened in, right? Or I'm assuming they don't recreate, but they could, I don't know, they could put things in different orders to try to build up so there can be a good finale, right? So it's a little weird with the science experiments that you also want to have ratings for. You might just be saving the best for last or the most obvious for last. Could just be that rockets are fun and it's like a Mythbusters effect of just people wanting to
see shit blow up. Yeah,
episode 1 out that way. And but also I'm not a scientist, guys, or an engineer, so I could be missing something.
Jane,
reason,
please become a scientist or an engineer. That would be very helpful to the show.
Oh man, maybe I can just raise one. Maybe my kid can get into it, right? So we'll see.
Cristina, so what did you think about this the idea of this experiment?
I mean, my mind jumped to what we've already spoken of, getting some blimps up, fill it with helium, and things like that. Just like Jane, I'm not a scientist or an engineer. So while I might have some great ideas if I was there at the moment, I'm not too sure how I would a better way to conduct these experiments other than what you had mentioned, Luis.
Cool. Well, thank you for that. I guess I changed my mind on this experiment because of the data that we got out of it. So I don't know if you guys want to go next to John Dover, and because that's sort of the order of the episode, or do we want to go through all the data and stuff of this first experiment and then come back to John Dover?
There's one more thing from the plane flight I thought we might touch on.
Yeah, please.
Do you recall when the Cessna was going over and Eric was in the back and he had the handheld phone and they'd been communicating totally normally? And then suddenly when the anomaly occurred and they had the 1.6 gigahertz spike and they had that grinding sound. I've heard that grinding sound before. And I'm not saying it's absolutely what happened there, but that grinding sound, back when I was in the Navy, I was working in radar systems, and we had handheld phones that were like on those bands even back then. And if you walk up near a loud's not the right word, I'm sorry, powerful transmitter that's transmitting in the general radar bands, if there's none of that going on, you can talk on and it sounds almost like a phone, even back when I was in. And if you walk up into a broadcast area, you will hear that grinding sound. And that's because it's not listening for the primary frequency of a radar, but a huge radar transmitter puts out bands that are sequentially higher and lower than its primary band. The receiver doesn't listen to that on the radar, but those bands are out there because that's the nature of radio transmission. And you can catch some of those side bands, and if you have a handset of pretty much any type that can catch RF, you hear that grinding sound. And that's what I heard so there was a big transmission going on, in my opinion, and it wasn't getting picked up by their gear on the ground, but it was coming from somewhere. That was just my observation.
Yeah, well, just I mean, I guess let's just dive into the experiment, because let me give everyone sort of some things that happened in this experiment. So obviously they got a Cessna, they put five GPS trackers on this. They had an ADS-B, which is it's a tool that monitors air traffic. So you should be able to see the plane on their GPS systems through this, and on top of that, the 5 GPS systems. But thankfully, there was 2 ADS-B systems on this plane. There was the pilot's, which is standard. She has to have that on the plane so then towers can see her. And then there was the one that they brought. And so, and then on the ground, they had 2 antenna to measure energy spikes in the triangle and also in the command center. And they also ended up using this antenna to point at the plane and see if the ADS system was actually broadcasting and working, and they were able to pick it up and determine that out of one of the 2 of those ADS-B systems, one of them failed on the plane, but was still broadcasting, and the other one was working and also broadcasting. So they were able to determine that it was working, but for whatever reason, it just wasn't collecting data. So those were sort of the instruments and the things that they had in play while the plane was going up. And so in that time frame, the plane's doing sweeps. It's going between, like I said, 3,000 and 5,000 feet is what they said. I don't know if they ended up going a little higher, but I don't remember them mentioning that. But yes,
they were at 8,000 initially.
Yeah, they at 8,000 initially? Maybe they worked their way down.
Well, she said approaching 8,000.
Okay. So maybe they went between 8,000, and I think they ended up at the last sweep they were gonna do was at 4,000, and then they cut the experiment and told them to go back to the airport. So there was a couple of weird things that happened, and one of them is this grinding sound that Jazz was mentioning. So I guess let's talk about that. Ladies, any thoughts? We'll start with Cristina.
What caught my attention more than the sound that Eric was collecting, it was the shadow that he said that he saw, but there was no craft, but also what Kendra stated. And she said, I'm seeing anomalies over the ranch. I'm feeling nervous. We need to keep in mind that she's a pilot. She's a teacher who teaches people how to fly. So, and she's had hundreds, if not probably thousands of hours in the air. Okay, here's where I'm guessing, but it wouldn't be normal for a pilot to feel nervous by seeing, let's say, your average anomalies like other aircraft, birds, things like this. So the fact that she felt nervous, it just goes to show maybe what she was seeing couldn't be explained. And I did find it rather disappointing that she didn't get more airtime to describe what she was potentially seeing. That way it would have been a little bit easier to kind of follow along onto why she felt nervous. But the fact that she is a pilot and has been flying in the air for hundreds, if not thousands of hours, there shouldn't be a good reason for her to be nervous. But she was, and she stated that.
No, that's a really good point. I didn't pick up on that part where she said she was nervous. But yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, that was looked like a pretty beautiful day. It looked like a great day to fly. There wasn't anything, crazy going on. So for her to get nervous in that setting, you're right.
And at that altitude as well,
right.
You're not going to be catching your normal stuff at that altitude, except for other planes and other helicopters. That's kind of what you're going to get for the most part. So I was rather disappointed that she didn't go into detail on what she thought she might have seen.
She probably did. They just probably hit the.
I was on the cutting room floor.
Yeah. That's probably what happened.
She saw a shadow, and she said, "I see a shadow," and there wasn't another plane. I'm sorry, that doesn't require instruments, right? That's weird. I think no matter how much experience you have, I've never been a pilot. I mean, I've worked on aircraft carriers, but if there's a shadow of a plane in the ground and you're looking around, you don't see another plane. That's weird, right? I mean, I think that would make anybody a little uneasy, no matter how experienced they are. Just my opinion.
Jane, what did you? I got something to say about that shadow thing, but I'll get back to it. But what did you think of anything about that experiment in particular that jumped out to you?
Well, it would be amazing if we could get Kendra on to
Yeah.
talk about the shadow, because I have felt the same way. I mean, I don't even know if they described the shape of the shadow or gave us any estimates of how big this object would have been, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, I had so many questions about what they saw, and it appears that both of them saw it. I think Eric and Kendra both saw it, but so that is extra interesting that there's 2 eyewitnesses to this. So yeah, and as far as the grinding noise, I don't really know what to make of it. I think what Jazz is saying here is really interesting. I don't know if I just saw clouds in the live chat, like, or yeah, right there could it have been a cloud. See, I would imagine a pilot would be used to seeing shadows of clouds during their flight hours. So that's why, yes, Kendra noticing it too and saying that she was feeling nervous, not just, oh yeah, there's something anomalous or something I can't explain. Kind of like, almost kind of how Cameron was in the last episode. I don't recall him. He didn't seem like really disturbed, or if I'm not mistaken, whereas Kendra seemed pretty affected by it. So I'd love to have her on and talk to her more.
Let's make that happen.
Yeah, I think.
Did you guys just hear a ding in the middle of Jane
Yes,
talking?
I did.
Yeah,
What the hell was that?
That was the weirdest noise that's ever happened in my office.
Okay, as soon as you
Are there any
talk about
unexplained
this
shadows over
phenomenon,
there?
something happens. There you go. It's the government, man.
That was weird. That was weird.
We're being recorded.
Felt
It's
like
the
somebody
government.
hit like a pot or a pan right next to me. It was wow. Okay, strange.
That's what it sounded like. Yeah.
Okay, well, Rather, what do you think about the cloud hypothesis? I think that makes a good point. Like, why? I mean, I feel like pilots would know what clouds look like moving along the ground.
Well, yeah, and I
shadows of
mean,
them.
I think if it was just the shadow, people, pilots saw a shadow, it'd be pretty easily dismissed. But there is all this confluence of other weirdness that happened at the same time. So it makes me, give a little bit more credence to these reports of things. And yeah, I mean, maybe it could be a cloud. Clouds do cast shadows. I'm trying to remember. It looked like it was pretty clear that day, but yeah, I think the confluence of the seeing the shadow with the GPS is failing and the 1.6 megahertz happening, along with the grinding noises on the comms, like that's a lot of coincidental failures.
Well, and then you didn't even add the GPS data that they did end up getting. Like that's like the icing that really is nice on the cake there.
Yeah, I was most unimpressed of that piece of data. I don't think that was actually any evidence that the GPS is telling us that they were actually underneath the ground. I think that was just, errant GPS readings. They were just, invalid data points.
But that's the second time it happened. And the thing also here with this GPS is that they had 5 of them and 4 of them failed. So they got the GPS reading from the plane, and then they've got the GPS reading from the other units that they had.
Yeah. When I first watched it, my original thoughts were, man, Eric Bard might not be too good at putting together GPS devices. but I don't think that that's actually the case. I read a really interesting theory on Reddit that was saying that the 1.6 gigahertz is right in that band of what the GPS receivers pick up. So they were hypothesizing that this signal that they keep on getting and is correlated with, weird GPS readings and whatnot, and potentially even, the murmurings, that might be a GPS jamming signal. They might be jamming these, the communications between the GPS devices and the satellite up in the sky, the GPS satellites. And that seems like a potentially plausible explanation for at least some of this weirdness that's going on.
We went over that last week, and when I went back and checked, GPS is higher frequency than most of the normal stuff everybody deals with, but GPS is at the bottom of the L band, and it tends to be, I mean, I guess you could mistake that depending, but I mean, that is really the satellite phone band. That's the one thing the FCC regulates that for. 1.612 is the center of the handheld satellite phones. The GPS is a little below that, but it's in the same band. So I guess it depends how sensitive your instruments are.
Well, but would there be any hypothesis as to why it just seems to shut off and turn on? Because I mean, they flew through those areas quite a bit, and it seemed like it only happened during one time of the flight. I mean, can a signal like that be concentrated in a point in the sky without it going anywhere else?
I think the bottom is it can be turned on or turned off. It's like, what is the source, right? Is it a satellite source? Well, then it can be turned on and off whenever you want. Their plane was down where Cessnas fly. Was there a plane, like we discussed a couple episodes ago, up around 40,000 feet that had a transmitter receiver on that band? That's another point source. If you got that kind of equipment, is there somebody on the ground with something they haven't found that's broadcasting? I don't think any of these things are technologically impossible, but given the band we're working with and the limited use the L band has, it makes it questionable. I mean, it does sound like the government has to be involved, and we already discussed. I got some FOIAs in, and we're checking. The government definitely has an interest. I'm not saying this is definitely a portal or something, but somebody's doing something weird on some bands that aren't normally used, and the government does have access to those. Is that it? Maybe we'll find out.
Jazz, people say that your headset's a little loud. Maybe move it away from the mouth. All the time, huh?
Every other show. I'm sorry.
No, you're right.
Swallowed my soda.
Oh, bless your heart.
No, I inhaled my soda.
No, I did one show with you guys where I had to do this. They were like, it's fine. I went and did another show, and they're like, we can't hear you. Can you move that down? So I'm getting really frustrated. Maybe I need a new audio system or something.
Yeah, but just something new to talk into. I can send you a microphone if you want it.
Yeah, but then I have to sit and have a microphone. I like having a headset. I'm willing to get a better headset, but is that better, by the way?
Yeah, it is better.
It feels a little better, yeah.
I got yelled at when I did this on another show, so just remind me.
No, you're good. Well, you're good. Go ahead.
One thing. Now Christina's loud. Okay, I'll just be out a little bit. Okay, so one thing that came to mind. Can you hear me now? Oh, okay. I took it seriously. Okay. So one thing that came to mind during this whole testing while in the helicopter and then in the plane, excuse me, and then what Travis and Dragon and Thomas were experiencing with that feedback, and to the point where what really caught my attention, and I'm going to walk you through my thought process. One thing that I was like, oh my gosh, was when Travis stated, oh, Eric and I have been talking, and it's very possible that there is some type of eavesdropping device here on the ranch. And I'm like, whoa. And while that can sound kind of staged, and I read people's comments stating, oh, that whole echo scene was staged, it could have very well have been. However, this is where that kind of spark went in my mind. I just started watching the TV show about Blind Frog Ranch, which is also in the Uinta Basin. They're just working their season 2 has been released not too long ago. And in season 2, episode 2, I believe, they had a similar instance where they found this military piece of equipment attached to a tree, and it had solar panels. It was 4G. It was very advanced. It looked incredibly expensive. As soon as the team took it down and turned it on, all of the data was wiped. And this was like a military grade camera. So I found that kind of peculiar that these were kind of happening at the same time. And to keep in mind, Blind Frog Ranch season 2 and Skinwalker Ranch season 3 were recorded around the same time frame in the summer of 2021, and they're in the same basin, the Uinta Basin. So that's kind of what caught my attention of what if it's a certain unknown group of people monitoring all these different ranches. So again, this thing that this team found at Blind Frog Ranch was military grade camera. It had solar panels. It was a 4G transmitter. And if you haven't watched that section of the TV show, I would recommend just watching that little piece of season 2, episode 2, and then come up with your own conclusions. I did end up looking to see if both TV shows were created by the same producer, and they weren't. So they're two separate entities. They don't have any connection to my knowledge. But I did find that kind of odd. They're both filmed at around the same time, and they're both catching or at least witnessing something that shouldn't necessarily be on their property.
Lou, you're muted.
Thank you. We need a crossover episode, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Moonshadow Ranch could be like, save that for, I don't know, the comeback, right? When somehow, if we get tired of Blind Frog Ranch. But what is really intriguing about that connection you're making, Cristina, is when I was first looking into Moonshadow Ranch, it was just an online rumor, and there seemed to be a lot of, I don't know, just mysterious pushback into looking into it. There was a lot of weird trolling that just didn't even make sense on Reddit for people who were suggesting that it was real. And then come to find out, oh, it is real. Brandon Fugel knows the owner of Moonshadow Ranch, but it sounds like it was owned in secrecy for a while. And
well, the owner of Moonshadow Ranch was Brandon Fugel's scoutmaster.
Oh, right. Yeah. And then there was that whole full circle moment where, which is wild. Especially if we think that there could be something intelligent going on here, or personal going on here, where it's really hard to do objective experiments, but maybe you have these personal aha moments that make you a believer in the ranch, and you don't necessarily need the science for yourself. Maybe we just all go to the ranch and gradually a domino effect. We just all get it or something. But
can I ask a question?
Yeah, fire away.
Are we ruling out the possibility that this could be either, like, maybe there's several ranches and there's a lot of weird stuff going on, but at the same time, and I was really curious about what Cristina said, the one part of the episode that really threw me off was the whole, we're hearing ourselves being like recorded and rebroadcasted. I got nothing on that. I don't know what explains that.
I've got a hypothesis.
Yeah, it was kind of bizarre.
I don't want to think it was faked, because so much of the rest of it seems to really stack up. But it sounded to me, and I was taking notes about this, that there really could be an external terrestrial involvement, the government most likely, because some of the stuff I've been looking into, maybe they are listening, and maybe they've got devices there, and it doesn't have to be a portal or anything like that. They could be onto something. I mean, maybe they are being recorded and they have good enough equipment that they're just getting feedback and echoes and things like that. I found that part really intriguing, and that didn't take me down the path of thinking, oh, they're just faking all this. They put that in to make it sound interesting. They got a lot of interesting stuff going on without anything needing to be put in my opinion. Can we prove that? In my opinion, no. But I don't know. It looked weird enough that it's worth looking into.
Rather.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was the weirdest moment of maybe the entire series so far. I thought the most maybe hilarious quote of the series, though, was when Travis was referencing that, and he said, it's like we're being recorded in real time. You're on a reality show. Of course you are, right? But so I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, man, if I was there, I'd want to, dig into everything, take apart all the electronics, look inside the walls, and try to actually figure out how and why this happened.
Okay. I've got a hypothesis as to how this happened. I don't know where the signal's coming from that would create this kind of feedback. But the thing is that every single one of those guys that walked out of the room is wearing a mic pack, a wireless mic pack. So the real simple solution, because they're listening to the frequencies over the loudspeaker inside the room. You can hear the frequencies that they're listening to, and then when it spikes, you can hear it spike. And so when that caused interference, I think their mic packs showed up on their speaker system, and I think what they should have, again, God, this is so frustrating for me because I wish I was there. Do any of the cameramen come through the system? Because if they're talking and we don't hear it, then we might know it's a mic pack. If we turn off the mic pack, do like 1 out of 3, do 1 or 2 of them come up through the mic? If all 3 come through the mic, then you know there's something else going on. It would have been easy, really simple to troubleshoot that in real time. I don't know how, and I'm wondering if anybody thought of that after. And I just don't know. I don't know.
You've done TV. Are we talking about like I'm wearing a microphone, a mic pack, and I'm in the room with you, and we're all being recorded. That's great. I walk outside, and now I'm talking outside, but there's equipment inside that's receiving and repeating for people in the room. Is that what we're talking about? And maybe the recording device is catching me initially saying it and inside the room saying it. Is that what that is?
If it's a recording device that's causing the interference, that if we're assuming
that makes sense.
But also you got to realize that there's a guy in the production tent or close to those mic packs that's got a trolley cart that catches all the signals from all the mic packs, and he can hook them up into one thing. He listens to them, he puts them on a drive, and then when the day's over, he takes that drive and he gives it to the editor. And that's how sound works. So like it would have been cool to go right to the sound guy and be like, yo, what's going on? Can we test what's going on with the sound here? Let's shut off a mic, see what's happening. Let's test the camera guys, see if we can hear any of them. So it's like
that makes sense.
I feel like the show needs somebody right there on set to be like, yo, try this and film this. Let's just everybody stop production. Something weird is going on right now. Let's stop and try and troubleshoot it. And if they can, then you know it wasn't anomalous. But if they can't, then it just adds to the validity of what they're doing. Because if they did test the mic packs,
if you're listening to the show, cancel the next season of UCR. Bring Luis out there. Put him on the ranch.
I'm telling you, man. I don't
all this. And number 2, if anybody gets killed by a dino beaver, you're probably going to be paying Luis the least, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, I was going to say I don't want to go out there to even see anything. I want to go out there just like you said, just for the production, just to be that guy to be like, well, wait a second. You might want to film this. I'm telling you, you put this so there's context to this. People are gonna fucking go crazy.
So we don't.
Go ahead, Jen.
We don't think that this is a message from the aliens trying to tell us that they are us.
I'm not
in
saying
the
it's
future.
not. Maybe it is.
We're really blowing that up.
But
it'd be fun. Sure, it'd be fun.
But what I'm saying is, all I'm saying is, if they just shut off a mic pack and 2 out of the 3 came on, then you know it's the mic packs coming through, not some crazy thing going on. You know, so
never would have thought of that, but that's a great idea, Luis.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. Just because, again, like that's my production brain. Anyway, all right. So yeah, just to recap. So we get the plane, we got the AD-SB systems. The pilot confirms that they're picking up the signal on the antennas. Then the radio goes off with a mechanical grinding sound. The spectrum analyzer spikes at 1.6 gigahertz. The room starts to echo, and then Travis Taylor pitches the idea of an eavesdropping device. And so that's, then the signal stops and the experiment ends because basically they're just, getting nervous as far as, the safety of the experiment. So they ended the experiment, and then we got the GPS tracking. And so I guess let's end with the GPS tracking on this, and then we could go to John Dover real quick. With the GPS tracking, the one that, and this is where maybe your hypothesis of Eric Davis or Eric doesn't know how to put GPS trackers together, because the one that did work tracked the flight perfectly. They're like, this is like exactly what you should see every time we pull up one of these GPS tracking devices. And then when we get the GPS tracking from the plane, it shows that it not only flew at sea level, but below sea level. and as far as 62.5 miles underground, which Travis Taylor says is the exact distance from sea level to space. Is that right? Is 62.5 miles? Is that right?
Yeah, that was one of the fact-checking things I did.
Okay, all right. I was just like, damn, man, that's pretty
wild. 100
wild.
kilometers for the others.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. The definition of where space starts is debated constantly.
That's true too. That's true too. Well, I mean, space for me starts at 0G. That's space. That's what I.
Oh well, then there's no space until you get halfway to the moon. Yeah, there's always some G.
I mean,
lights stay where they are is because they're being balanced by the Earth's gravity. There's still gravity where the satellites go, where the shuttle flies, all the SpaceX stuff. The moon is only where it is because it feels the gravity. There is no real 0G until you get out in interstellar space, and even then,
that's fair. That's fair. I guess I just meant floating. when you open up a can of soda and it just dribbles out everywhere. For me, that's space.
That's low Earth orbit. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So let's go back to John Dover, because I think, like we were saying this last week, like I feel like these little side missions, they almost feel like side quests with Candace and is it Tom? I think it's Tom. Anyway, where they go and they're now talking to the people in the community. And so we get to John Dover, and he's a Native American and he knows the area very, very well. And he starts out with pointing out some petroglyphs in the area, and he was explaining that these petroglyphs are historical records to talk about gods, clans, maps, historical, stories of historical significance. And then there's also this spiral pattern that shows up in these petroglyphs that not only are found all throughout the United States, but they're found in Europe and also Africa, these exact same petroglyphs. So the idea behind this, and this is where I was like, oh, Christina's just going to absolutely eat this up, was the idea that these things are portals or ways to travel between maybe even star systems or dimensions. Or I don't think that's clear. The petroglyph doesn't tell you exactly where it goes. But of course there's lore, there's stories that accompany these petroglyphs. But I mean, Cristina, this is your wheelhouse, so I mean, let's start with you. What did you think about this part of the episode?
Well, it seems that throughout season 3, the word portals or wormholes keeps popping up. So I want to see more of that throughout the season. Absolutely. Because that's what a lot of people are speculating. Those that are watchers, those that are also researchers when it comes to this ranch. Well, what if it's a portal? What if entities are coming in and out? Well, we simply don't know that. But season 3 is now alluding to that possibility. And everyone that's on the team is kind of speculating on that. So when we're dealing with John Dover, it was fantastic. And I feel that from all of these reviews that we've done, it seems that the production company during season 1 and the beginning of season 2, we were like, we want Native Americans to go on the land and to tell stories or to talk about the significance of this area. Season 3 comes along. This is the second one we've received so far. One last season, one last episode, and now we're getting another one this episode. So that's a big deal. The fact that we are able to hear these Native Americans, specifically the Navajo, to talk about, and the Ute, it was last week, to talk about the significance of the land. So with John Dover, like I had mentioned a little bit earlier, he is a Navajo Ranger, but him specifically, he's done a significant amount of research on the paranormal and on the Skinwalker. While I was rather upset that he didn't go into detail or they didn't give him enough background for the audience to understand who he was and the hype of like why this is so exciting to have him on, well, that part was a little bit disappointing that we weren't able to see who he is in his research. it was nice that he was able to talk about some of these old ritualistic practices and talk about the depictions on the wall, and along with also walking clockwise when entering a sacred ground. So I felt that was a really nice touch to add to the episode. And when I was looking at the mound, I know that he had stated that it could have been very well to push the evil onto one side. When he was looking through that little hole through the rock and where the sun could possibly shine through, the first thing that came to mind was a possible calendar, right? But he didn't say that, so I'm like, oh man. But we have to ask ourselves at the end of the day, is what is a portal? And he mentioned a rift to another dimension. But rift is a great word to use, I think, because it's kind of a rupture in space time, maybe something that kind of gives off gravitational effects, light and glow effects, maybe cast shadows or displaces geographical locations. So what's on the other side of a rift? So it could possibly be the trickster intelligence, maybe. I mean, that is behind so much of the mystery. So I was very happy that John Dover, and even during Travis Taylor's outro, both of them in some way mentioned this type of possibility, a rift to another dimension.
Jane, what did you think of the John Dover segment? I mean, like I said, I think I feel like they could make it their own half-hour version of the show just off of these little
Absolutely.
stories
Have
and
a
the
little
basic.
ancient aliens crossover, right? Very much
Yeah.
so. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love all the historic stuff in general, just when it comes to this phenomenon. If you guys have been noticing a pattern with me, I tend to be more interested in the past than what's going on today. And so I love that stuff. And I was looking into it a little more. And so I think these are the supposed petroglyphs left behind by the Fremont, or I don't know how you pronounce it, Indians. And what I like about this is they really aren't completely sure when they were made. They're guessing like around 2,000 years or under, but the spiral symbol has older history in other parts of the world. And I'm not sure if it means a literal portal, but I think at the very least it could almost be a metaphorical one. There's definitely been a lot of recorded, I guess, instances of using the spiral to describe like soul evolution and things like that. So I think that was interesting. As far as whether the petroglyphs are showing aliens, I mean, if you look at, I was looking up some of the mainstream accounts of these petroglyphs, and that's not really one of the mainstream theories. It's just that that's how these people were depicted, with kind of like square, boxy, like structures. But I like throwing out the idea of, could there be almost like, could there have been robotic type of visitation? Could there be robots that could have visited people in the distant past, and this is how we drew, put them up on the cave walls? But then also, to be a little bit disturbing, furthermore, if you look at all the petroglyphs together, there's a group of them that are like really peaceful, showing like pregnant women and people, holding hands. And then there's another set that's apparently like very violent. And these, if we're to say that these are humanoid figures, are holding like human heads. So these may not be the most the friendliest, visitors.
That doesn't sound friendly for sure. Jazz, what did you think?
I'm really glad we get the chance to talk about this, because when they bring in the Native American element, I think they start exploring a lot of things that, if you're just looking at this in a nuts and bolts way, you don't tend to think about. I had the opportunity, we haven't talked about it on the show before, over the last little over a month, I was doing interviews with two people who actually worked at Skinwalker Ranch before Brandon Fugel's people arrived. But after the whole NIDS thing had died down and they were there in sort of like that dead area, I'll send you a link later over at Mysterious Universe that get published on Sunday. And that was really an interesting part of it, because two of the people who worked there, one in security and one who was taking care of livestock, they had been going around when the ranch was basically empty for 6 years. There was almost nobody there except security and just, basic people. And they'd been kind of doing their own investigations. And what they were looking at wasn't dino beavers or anything. They were out and finding Native American artifacts and carvings and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then experiencing some lower key but really strange experiences. And they went back and they tried to report them to Bigelow's people, and they turned the reports in. They heard like nothing. And when they did hear anything, they were like, that's not what we're here for. We're not interested in that,
Yeah.
And it felt to me from these witnesses like that was a big part of the mystery, and they were invested. And they were like, this is a big part of this. And nobody wanted to hear it. And now Fugel's team is there, and now they're going back out and doing that again. And I hope they go back and talk to some of the previous people about this while they're doing the investigation, because I spoke personally to people who were out there and like, yeah, this isn't all nuts and bolts. There was weird stuff. And I don't know, does the spiral mean portal? Who knows? They're all over the world. But they were seeing some really strange things and recording a lot of Native American stuff that seem to tie into things that aren't easily explained. So I'm glad to see the show, going in that direction, exploring it.
Yeah. Well, there's a gentleman by the name of Army Nation in our chat, and he says that he is a Native American from Wyoming, and he wanted to see, and I was curious, I was going to actually ask you this question, and he said, I wish they dove more into the pictures on the stone. I'm curious to know what your interpretations of those pictures on the stone is, in particular, the spiral. I mean, maybe you could give us a little insight from your perspective on what that can mean. But rather, while we possibly wait for that answer to come back, what did you think about this part of the show?
Yeah, I thought it was, interesting. It's
Yep, you got it, Jess.
I'm done. Can I just back out
for
a couple of?
Yep.
It's hard for me to know, how much is speculation versus how much is, knowledge of these symbols kind of handed down. I wish they kind of, went into that a little bit more. There was one thing that kind of did stick out to me as a, I'll throw this out as a potential explanation for symbols like the spiral appearing all over the world at a given time. And that is, these ancient cultures were very looking at the sky a lot. That was very important to them for navigation and seasons, planting crops or whatever. So they were, focused on the sky, and things like a supernova could have appeared. And a lot of these symbols, maybe there was a spiral looking supernova that everyone in the world was seeing at the same time, that, you see something crazy in the sky, you're going to take note and make symbols of it. So that could be a potential, prosaic explanation for how something like a spiral symbol emerges across the world at a, given time. But yeah, I don't think that's definitely not
cultures as well.
Yeah, not definitive. And, it's still, all this stuff is very, very
interesting. That makes sense. I mean, like having a not too distant star explode could show itself in the sky for a couple of 100 years before it goes out, and so, yeah, I can see how that could get through a few generations of people. And then it just disappears and they're like, where'd it go? So yeah, I dig that. I think that's a good hypothesis. What do you think, Cristina?
When it comes to the spiral, like Jazz had stated, and like the TV show had stated, this is a very consistent symbol across the globe. But from the slight research that I have done on it, when I was researching the Anasazi at Chaco Canyon, it was also apparent there as well. So some people believe it has to do with the solstices. Some believe it has to do with portals or kind of a door, a gateway opening. And it's honestly, it's very difficult to say. While, of course, I would love for it to be portals, and that would be incredibly exciting, we just don't have any evidence to back up those claims other than the fact that it's consistent throughout the globe. Now, there is one pictograph that I have seen, and I can't remember the country, so I do apologize. But there was one in particular where there was a spiral type of drawing and an entity or another type of being-like creature coming out of it. Again, I can't remember where it was, and I can probably look for it. But that is the only reference that I can possibly think of that would give people to allude to the possibility that it was a portal. Other than that, if you just casually see it and you're not a part of the culture, and if you didn't hear the oral traditions, it's very difficult to assume what it could possibly be.
I love this comment, Mr. Catfish 2100. Yo, 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 my boy Luis. Sup, everyone? Pass it through. I'm out. Working. Peace. That's pretty funny. Yeah, no, that's you make some good points there. I mean, I'm curious rather, what do you think about, let's just stick on the petroglyphs and then we'll go to scores once Jazz gets back. But what do you think about these depictions of, it almost looks like machine type humanoids, like robots, like and those kind of petroglyphs also tend to show up all over the world. I mean, do you think, like, again, this is something that has to do with star systems, or maybe they're seeing shapes in the stars and that they're depicting them in these petroglyphs? But I mean, I don't know. That one is kind of weird. You can't just point to the sky and say, well, look at these two robot looking things in two different parts of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a good answer. What first comes to my mind is that, art and drawing is a little bit of a science. And like, perspective drawing, that was almost kind of a modern invention. I don't know the specifics about it, but, the science of being able to draw with perspective and, make a drawing that actually looks like a human, you wouldn't just innately know how to do that if no one taught you how to do that, or you didn't, you weren't good at art and studying art. So it makes a little bit of sense to me that, if you're a early drawer and, you don't know perspective and stuff, you might.
Background. Some people want to know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's one of the more rounded head guys, though.
Yeah.
Right. That could be like.
I guess kind of what you're saying, rather, it's almost like writing where there's like, yeah, look at that, dude.
Or just like, like if even now, if I try to make like I don't know if I could make a human looking form in 2D that would look better or more recognizable than a human than that. It's it's simple, but it definitely communicates, a person, which I think is probably what they're trying to get at.
Yeah, I mean,
like a sun, don't you guys think? Kind of.
Yeah,
or an eye even, or
There's well, okay, so there's two things. So we got an answer from Army Nation, and he says, my great grandfather said the spiral was like water of a whirlpool that would show up in the middle of the desert with light. Okay, that's not my house.
Desert
Whose
toilet.
house was that?
Those are definitely pots and pans, right?
Pots and pans. There's something going on with pots and pans in this stream.
Somebody's cooking.
Yeah, was that you?
Hopefully,
Jane?
it's ramen. I would love to have some.
Yeah, man.
It's poltergeist, obviously.
I'm so hungry.
Ditto.
But yeah, I mean, like, I can understand like them depicting. I know, especially when we can only use the examples that we historically have seen, but like, some of those tribal headdresses and attire would get pretty elaborate and very, very exuberant, almost like if you've ever been to Carnival or Fat Tuesday in New Orleans, like the costumes are incredible. So to try and depict that on the rock, I'm sure would be difficult, number one. But number two, it might come across as something like out of this world. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious. I mean, I know our friend Carl Vibe is really into the petroglyphs aspect of this as well. And just going back to the shadows moving across the ground. I mean, Carl Vibe's got a night vision video of a shadow moving across a mountain. It's insane. It's pretty cool. I don't want to overhype it, but I know he's going to be releasing this video pretty soon. I mean, I would definitely keep an eye on this channel because that could be cool. What were you gonna say? Rather, I saw something. I saw your face. Were you gonna say something?
No, nothing.
All right,
for me.
let's go to our scores.
I thought you were gonna.
I saw your face, rather.
Yeah, well, I've done a
skepticism
few
about,
hundred shows
Carl's
now with.
shadow.
I've done or at least over 100 shows with Rather, and I sometimes I know when he really wants to say something, so I try to keep an eye on that. All right, so let's get to our scores. I'm now last
can I ask
here.
One question.
Yeah, fire away.
I just went and took this call.
I think you can move your mic a little lower, Jazz, just a little bit.
Okay.
There we go.
After I went and took that call, I got this one quick question from somebody who's watching the show right now. And I almost hesitate to ask it, but I thought it was interesting enough. Maybe we could toss it out to the panel. If you had to rate, and I didn't write it down, sadly, but if you had to rate the difference between Secret of Skinwalker Ranch and Finding Bigfoot, I know this isn't a Bigfoot show. I get it.
No.
What would you say the odds are that one of these shows is more intentionally fake than the other? And I know what my gut reaction is, but I'm just curious. We're talking about things that are, paranormal, unexplained, hard to prove, a lot of unknowns, right? What do you think about the producers of the show, the people involved in it? And this, I'm kind of interpreting the question. What are the chances you think that one of these shows is a lot more fake than the other show? Or are they both totally real? Or are they both just to get ratings?
I mean, ratings is the first thing. Eyeballs is always the first thing with television. That's what they want. Doesn't matter what it is. Could be the most straightforward news or the most scientific analysis of whatever it is, or reality TV or whatever. The whole point of television is commercials. Like, that's why it's there. It's not there to entertain us. It's there to put commercials in front of our face. So I think from that aspect, they're both entertainment shows. I think first, they're both first there to get eyeballs and get attention, and it's content. And if they don't cover it, I feel like somebody else would. So might as well, do it. But I mean, look, I don't know anybody on the set of the Hunting Bigfoot shows, so I can't say. But after talking to Brandon, after talking to Dragon a few times, after having Chris Bartell and Taras Matla and producers of the show, like, seems like everybody walks away from that ranch going, this place is just freaking weird, and I'm never coming back here again, or B, I would recommend not to go. Like, that's usually the things that we hear. And if you are going to go, like, just be careful, be very cognizant of yourself. So I don't know, Jazz. I couldn't answer that question just because I don't know. We've never talked to anybody from that show, but the thing with Bigfoot for me,
yeah.
I have you, Jane.
I know three of the guys on the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing with Bigfoot with me, and I'll just say this, and then I'll let you guys give your opinion. But the thing with Bigfoot for me is that it's an animal. There should be bones. There should be proof more than just a couple of hairs or some recordings of their sounds. I feel like with all the technology you have today, you could easily get a few drones up and scour the woods and find these things. I don't know. For me, Bigfoot is just too weird. It's a little too out there for me. I want to see if I saw bones, or if I saw a skull, or if I saw a dead body, or a hunter got one, or they captured one. Like, yeah, that'll change my mind on it. But I just can't imagine that this thing, a primate-like thing's been this big, living in all over the country, not just the upper Northwest, but everywhere. There's stories of this creature.
I hope everybody else weighs in, but I asked the question badly based on Luis's answer. It wasn't a question of, do you think Bigfoot's real? Do you think
the phenomena.
Well,
at Skinwalker
which
Ranch.
show's more
Do you think
fake?
the show is more legitimate or more fake?
Yeah, and this is why I'm explaining it this way, because I feel like for me, the more legitimate of the two shows would be the Skinwalker show, only because I have a huge bias in it, and just talking to the people from there, it feels like there's something going on. Nobody's labeled at what it is. Nobody's said, here's the answer. And where the Bigfoot show's been going on for a pretty long time, and we still haven't even gotten a good picture of Bigfoot. Like,
Can I just interject here, because I did ask Cliff a lot those questions.
Yeah.
Lou, that you had. I mean, I have an interview with Nick Redfern. He'd have a more mystical interpretation of why we can't find Bigfoot. I love the idea of Bigfoot being like Chewbacca, right, and teleporting around. So why not? Why couldn't aliens be a big hairy creature? Why couldn't the aliens be dolphins, right? And it seems like, well, but if Bigfoot's at
don't drag
Skinwalker
the
Ranch,
dolphins into this, lady.
right? It's like one of the reasons we're interested in Skinwalker Ranch are apparently stories of Bigfoot sightings and dino beavers, and you had very much similar scenes. I heard something very similar to finding Bigfoot. I think you could do the same comparison with ghost hunting shows. I would say the difference between finding Bigfoot, the big difference is that it's not in a specific location. I think every episode is a different location, different set of witnesses. So some just are a little more scientific than others, just depending on the case that they're looking into. So it's just a much broader footprint, if you will. So they really can kind of get away with a lot more speculation, I think, and just like hit the high notes of like all the entertainment. About the bones, though, what Cliff told me is that that's actually not as uncommon in the animal kingdom. So you don't actually typically just stumble upon animals of dead bones, bones of dead animals. I don't know if it's larger predators, when they go off to die, they go off in obscure places and die there. So if it was a very small population of these humanoids that, I don't know, maybe somehow are being protected or covered up, that's the reasoning. He also helped to work on the Orang Pandek Foundation, which is, I think, a now extinct red-headed, red furried primates. So he takes a very biological point of view on it. I know that there have been large-ish primates discovered in recent times. It's just they're typically not in our own backyard.
Jay, which show is more fake?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I would put them similar. I would say this season 3 of Skinwalker Ranch might start to be pulling ahead
tip the scale
in the ghost hunting shows that I've seen. I think season 1 and 2, I think just depends on the episode. Like there are like they do the town halls, right, where they go and they talk to all these Bigfoot witnesses, and they'll do similar things. Well, they'll go talk to Native Americans and people who have stories, and they'll look at casts of footprint. I don't know why that's necessarily less scientific.
When that Les, I can't remember his last name, but he's like the survivor man. Like he went on a mission to go find Bigfoot because he thinks there's something to it. And that was like 6 or 7 years ago. He has not found anything. And that guy is like a legitimate wilderness man that can survive in very remote areas. And he has found no evidence of this thing. So that's kind of where I'm like, if he can't find it, I don't know. It's a stretch for me. But Cristina, what do you think?
If I had to stand on anything, and call me naive, but I don't think anything is faked in Skinwalker Ranch. And if I had even, if I even thought that one thing was faked, I probably wouldn't watch any of it. I mean, does the TV company use spin and embellishment for drama purposes with music and cutscenes? Well, yeah, no doubt. But those gentlemen faking stuff, I no way. I don't believe that at all. As with finding Bigfoot, I have yet to really dig into that show, so nothing really to say on that. But Luis, you brought up finding bones or a body when it comes to Bigfoot. Well, how often do you come across black bear or grizzly bear bones? Ask any hunter. Ask any hunter, and they're going to say that they've never come across them.
But the thing is that I've seen stuffed bears in hunting stores. I've seen
Stuff-
bones
Well,
those
bones
are
of bears
ones that,
in
that they've
museums.
killed themselves. The
Right.
hunters have killed themselves. But if
Right.
you're casually finding bones in a forest, you're not gonna find them. At least from what I got when talking to Jessica Jones. So people do see things like this, and sometimes they are seen within minutes of a UFO sighting, and that really shakes them up. But it is something that I would like to look more into, because the legends are as old and even in every First Nation tribe as well, and across the globe. So there has to be something to it, some type of like a relic hominid, as Micah Hanks often calls it. So there's a lot more research to be done, and with these TV shows, faked or not, they're bringing more eyes to the topic, or people that want to end up becoming researchers and doing the field investigations themselves.
I can tell Rather's ready to explode.
Yeah, what do you got?
Before we move on from Bigfoot, I just have to do another Cliff Brackman shout out. His wife is lovely, Melissa. They have a Bigfoot museum in Oregon. So I think it's the National Bigfoot Museum, but you guys should go, check it out.
After we send Rather to the SCU conference in Alabama, we will send him to the Bigfoot Museum in Oregon. And if Rather comes back from Bigfoot Museum saying, Lou, I think there's something to this, maybe we'll start dedicating some time of the show to Bigfoot. But what do you got, Rather? You're in that area. You live there.
I'm more aligned with Jane and Cristina than you on this issue, Lou.
Wow.
I think that I'm not convinced that there is a Bigfoot, but I think that the door it is possible. The forests are a giant, big place, and I think that you're right. We don't find bones of. There could be explanations for why we're not finding evidence for Bigfoot, and that could be.
Here's my thing. There's no dinosaur walking around. We found their bones.
Well, I mean, we do find species that we think are extinct, and then we find them happen across them, and it turns out they're not extinct. I mean, they're yeah. I'm not saying that it's true. If I were to bet money, I'd probably bet that they aren't out there, but I think they could be. And as far as which show is more credible, I don't know a lot about the Hunt for a Bigfoot show, but I assume they don't have someone like Brandon Fugel involved in their production. And really, it's him and his vouching for the authenticity of the Skinwalker show that makes me think like the moments like the echo in the war room there probably weren't fake. I trust Brandon when he says that he made the producer promise that nothing would be staged, and I take him as his word. He doesn't seem like he has any ulterior motives there. I'm not that familiar with the Bigfoot production crew. Seems like there could be a lot more room for doing some fun stuff with the evidence. But that's just my 2 cents.
I appreciate everybody answering, and to follow up on something Cristina said, Micah Hanks studies this a lot. Do you know how many fossilized specimens of chimpanzees have been found? 3.
Wow.
They live in areas where when an animal dies, it doesn't sink down into the sand and turn into stone because somebody comes along and eats it, so that's one part of it. But my big question is, the shows that cover Bigfoot and other things like that, that seems to me, and I know Luis is the best one to answer this, those are production companies that go out and come up with a topic, and they're like, this is an interesting topic. A lot of people might want to see this, might put butts in seats, might get people to tune in. Let's go find some Bigfoot people. I don't think Brandon Fugel was somebody that anybody sought out. He went out and bought the damn ranch on his own. He didn't do it. He wasn't going to spend that kind of money in the hopes, in my opinion, that, wow, maybe I could get a discovery show out of this. He went out and just did it.
Yeah.
And
that he hired his own team.
I get is that this show is something he agreed to do to share the information, whereas a lot of the other shows on these more paranormal, bizarre things, there were people looking for shows. I don't think he did this looking for a show.
So to answer the question I was given that I put to you first without answering it, I think this show's a lot more legitimate talking about Skinwalker Ranch. Because what was Brandon Fugal's motivation? The guy was already a billionaire. He's already set for life. Why does he want to go risk? Oh, I want to go talk about aliens or something. When he's a businessman, particularly from a very conservative area. So my answer to the question was, no, I think Skinwalker Ranch is way more legitimate. And I will say that as somebody, you can go look up the stuff on Micah Hank's show. I've only mentioned it a couple of times. But when I was 14 years old, I saw a Bigfoot. Okay. Or what I thought was a Bigfoot. I don't know if it was. But so I don't write off Bigfoot at all. But I think I put a lot more legitimacy on this topic and particularly on this show. So that's my answer. And I think the person who wanted to be anonymous who asked the question, and thank you for all chipping in on it.
Yeah, I'll say this last thing, and it's something that I recommend everyone to watch, especially you, Jazz. There's a documentary on Hulu that's called Sasquatch, and it's a documentary that is a story by the journalist by the name of David Holthouse, and this guy did so David Holthouse. He was like he went underground in the neo-Nazi party, and so he had this story of a Sasquatch tearing apart a guy on a marijuana farm back in the early 90s. And he traced this story all the way through. And the rumor of the story that it was a Bigfoot that ripped this guy apart. It is awesome. And I think you'd get a real kick out of it. And after I was done watching this documentary, I'm like, I think that pretty much put the Bigfoot thing to rest for me.
Well, maybe once Bigfoot sees you, you're done for.
I'm done for. Yeah, for sure. He's not gonna like me.
I just throw this out real quick. I recently read an article by a credible scientist who was claiming that the Homo florensis, or the Hobbit-like human cousins, that they might still actually be around in some these island forests. So
I watched that.
Who knows, really? I think that
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Anyway, all right, let's get to our scores.
Lord of the Rings is real.
Lord of the Rings is real. Tolkien was right.
Hey, don't be saying the Lord of the Rings isn't real. Let's not go there.
Let's not go
there. I would never say such a thing.
It's all real.
All right. Actually, before we get to our scores, I want to read a couple comments from the audience. Jay Allen Heineken says, "Are we sure that voice feedback thing wasn't staged somehow?" We all gave you our opinions on sort of what we thought. So sorry I'm getting to this late, but we did start. We've been answering some of these questions accidentally. Duncan Furry says, yes, you should subscribe. Oh, I saved this chat because we didn't get to talk about this real quick. Let's just touch on this. The portal is up for Skinwalker Ranch. You can pay.
They have my money.
Yeah,
they've got your money, Christina. Okay.
Well, they will. They will pretty soon. Be like,
okay,
take my money, please.
I didn't even know it was up. So let's contact me after the show because I want to subscribe to that.
Yeah. It's I believe it's $8 a month, and you can get full access to a bunch of things that they're offering. And
it's already on their website.
If you could pull it up, that'd be great. Just so this way we can get the details of what they're offering through this subscription. But I didn't see anything there as far as access to the cameras that they have on the ranch for live streaming purposes. But I could be wrong on that. I think they did mention something about live streams, but I don't know if it's going to be a 24-hour stream. Aaron Desario says, the problem with this show, they never follow up when they get something weird. They just move on to looking for something else weird. And I kind of agree with that. But I don't know if they're moving on because they're short on time. I feel like you could take
How much of it
this
gets
one
left on the
show
cutting
and
room
make
floor?
4 shows out of it. Like you can make a show just about the behind the scenes with the crew and the technical difficulties that they go through. You can make a show about Candace going around, the Uinta Basin, talking to the locals and inviting them on the ranch. You can make a show about that. You can make a show about the things that they didn't check up on, the things that people wanted follow up on. Like, for example, that somebody wanted, I think it was, who was it that came on our show who was complaining that they didn't talk to the doctor who took the x-rays? And it's just like, dude, like, no, right. Like, there's so many things that you would have to do to make that happen. So like, I feel like there's moments like that, even moments like this, where it's like, you could get the behind the scenes stuff and also, just follow up on stuff that people wanted answers to. Then of course you got just the regular Skinwalker Ranch show. You can do a spinoff of just the dragon. Let's follow the dragon while he does groceries. I'd watch it.
Dragon could be a whole season by himself. Yeah.
Rather, did you pull up the website? Does it tell you what it offers?
I can't find it immediately.
Duncan had mentioned that as soon as you subscribe, you have access to the live stream. Rather, if you type in Skinwalker Ranch, it's skinwalker-ranch.com.
Here's a question for the panel from Jonathan. He says, I have a question for the panel. Do any of you believe that the Palladian species humanoids are real? I do. Okay, it's yes or no. Palladians are real. Jane.
That was one of the first interviews I did, was learning about the Palladians kind of during the interview. What was interesting, though, that I found is there's a Plejar, and there's preceded the Greeks, and there's a lot of lore around that. And
Jane, you're breaking the rules. Yes or no? Palladians are real.
I don't think the Palladians are, but I think there's something else that they could be based on.
Okay, no. Rather, Palladians, real or no?
No.
Cristina, Palladians, real or no?
I have no clue, so I'm going to say no because I haven't seen any evidence.
Okay, I'm going to say no as well. Jazz, Palladians, real?
Sure. I have no evidence.
You got Jazz.
No reason to say it, but you know what? We're living in a world where all sorts of weird crap is happening right now, and there's a lot of stuff going on that I never would have believed before, even in our personal life. So, with no evidence to say it, why not? Okay, right. You're getting a thumbs up for me, Palladians.
Yeah,
you're real.
So there you go, Jonathan. You got a friend in Jazz.
Mythology. Pleiades. We're companions of Artemis. There's a lot of Greek mythology around the predecessors to the ancient Greeks.
So. Yeah.
By the way, dolphins are also aliens.
Yeah, and somebody also added that spirals are things that are patterns that are seen when you take DMT. So that could, I don't know how they manufactured DMT back in the day, but was that natural DMT? Is that a natural thing that you could get from a plant?
Well, yes. Peyote is pretty prevalent when it comes to the Native American culture. So it is similar, yes. And it's just a plant.
Peyote is similar to DMT. See, I've never done any.
Peyote's a little bit similar. What's the South American one?
Ayahuasca.
Yeah,
ayahuasca. Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Yeah, also very similar as well.
But it grows naturally.
Okay, so rather, what are we looking at here? Insider membership benefits. What do we get?
Get exclusive Skinwalker Ranch content, disturbing and anomalous audio, infrasonic and frequency data, historical data, live Q&As, access to the webcams, giveaways, and exclusive meet and greets.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff.
What are the webcams?
They have my money. I'm telling you that.
Access to the ranch webcams.
So is that 24/7 live feeds?
I would assume so.
Okay, I'm on board with that. Sure.
So you get $8 a month, which charges you what for the annual? So they give you an annual discount of 20%. So what's the annual rate?
$96 for
the year, or you can pay $10 a month and pay $120 a year, depending on what your financial situation is.
A little more expensive than Mysterious Universe, but right in the same ballpark.
Yeah, I'm curious to know if anybody's signed up for this now, because I mean, I'd love to do. Cristina, when you sign up for this, let's do a review on it and see what.
All right, I'm down. I'm telling you, it's already going to happen. But Skinwalker Ranch Dressing says the sign up isn't working.
Oh, the sign up's not working, huh?
That's what.
And his name's
Ranch dressing is
and his
saying.
name's Skinwalker Ranch dressing, so you know that's got to be pretty legit. So yeah, we'll give it a shot. I'll give it a shot for a month and see what's on there, and we'll do a review.
Webcams, like what
Maybe
if that's on purpose?
We'll say. I'm sure there's going to be a mid-season break at some point in the show, and when we do get that, maybe we'll review the website and let's see what's on there. That could be fun. All right, let's go to scores. Jane.
Man, I was super entertained. Golly. I guess I want to keep it in an 8.5 though, because we're only on episode 3.
Yeah.
And science was really high. Like I said, I was fact checking the whole thing. Couldn't find any holes. I did have more questions. So I'm gonna do a high 8.
Okay. Rather.
Man, I was very entertained. I think this was one of the most entertaining episodes. I'm going to still leave a little bit room to get better. Hopefully each one gets a little bit better. So I'm going to go with a 9 for entertainment.
Wow.
I might disappoint some of you with my science score because I was a little bit disappointed in the setup for the experiment. I think they got a lot of interesting facts out of what they did, but they didn't really follow up on any of the facts, and they didn't really set up the experiment for learning anything other than GPS. So I'm gonna go 4 on science.
Okay. Cristina?
I was not expecting that from you, rather.
Yeah, I mean, because you enjoyed the episode so much, I thought for sure you were going to give it at least a 6 on science. But
I hope they dive down and clarify more stuff in future episodes.
That could, yeah. I mean, I get that frustration for sure.
Rather,
yeah,
don't
Cristina.
let him bully you. You do your own scores. Don't let him abuse you.
Am I abusing him? Wow.
You are, clearly.
Wow.
Well, as for the entertainment score, I'm gonna give it a good 9. I was very entertained. We got to see Dragon's face a few times, like that, and that was pretty fantastic. And then as for the science score, I'm gonna have to give it a 9. I think it had to be.
Wow.
I think compared to the previous episodes from the previous seasons, this one was very science oriented. It was really all about science in this episode. And while some of the data could have been disappointing because they didn't collect really anything, the fact that the whole episode was practically dedicated to science, I have to give them a high score. So 9 for science, 8 for entertainment.
Oh, I thought you said gave it a 9 for entertainment. I thought you gave 2 9s.
8. No, 8 and a 9.
All right.
If I said 9, I meant
all right.
8.
You can correct. You're allowed to correct. It's 8 and 9. All right. Okay. Jazz.
I enjoyed the show, but a lot of it was kind of plotting at times, I thought. Still definitely worth watching the whole way through. It wasn't the most entertaining one so far. I'm going to go with a 6 for entertainment. I really enjoyed the science in this one, but again, I raised a number of questions we discussed here. I want to research them more and find out. Not totally solid all the way through. This was not my favorite episode, although I thought it was very good. But I'm going to go with an 8 on science. So I'm going to go 6 and 8.
6 and 8. Okay.
Yeah. It's good. I like it.
Yeah. I feel like I'm trying to have my cake and eat it too, because as much as I love shots of Dragon and the entertaining aspect of him jumping out of helicopters and stuff, I mean, last week's episode was the Dragon episode for me.
Great episode.
This didn't have a lot of that, but also, in my opinion, it was one of the I think the most well-constructed episodes I've seen in 3 seasons. Like this, and nothing about it felt manufactured or pushed to me. I wish they had dug deeper in certain aspects, like where Rather says, and as far as the radios are concerned for me. And God damn it, I just want to see some balloons with these instruments on there already. Like it's killing me. But from an entertainment aspect, I'm going to go conservative and give it a 7.
Wow.
It was I did enjoy the format. And I think if this was the format for every episode, I feel like maybe that score would be, I don't know if it'd be higher, but I don't know. There's something about this episode I really, really, really liked, but it wasn't as fun or as flashy as the other ones, if that makes sense. It's
well,
like the structure of it was really good. but this wasn't for the Dragon fans. This wasn't for the Travis Taylor fans. This wasn't for the Fugel fans. This was just the whole experiment. One experiment was the whole show. And then it was intertwined with stories from the basin. So, okay, I'm just going to give you my score. Entertainment, I said 7. Science, I'll give a 6.
Well, can we mention for the preview for episode 4, what really made me smile, and I already want to give it a score, was when Travis Taylor was wearing his CrossFit t-shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that. Okay.
I missed that too, but I can just picture it in my brain.
And then as Dragon said, how do you know if someone's doing CrossFit? They tell you.
They tell you about it. Yeah, for sure.
So,
and I mean, that's like
really funny. Travis
Taylor and Caleb Bench's Instagram feeds are nothing but CrossFit on the ranch. It's like Skinwalker CrossFit. They can literally open their own gym. Okay. Well, that was our Skinwalker Ranch review, you guys. Thank you for joining me, all of you on the panel. That was a lot of fun. If you guys want to, before you get out of here, let's kick on some music, of course. But before we get out of here, let's just tell everybody what you're working on and where they can find your work. We'll start with Jane.
Yeah, so man, before the Skinwalker Ranch stream, we started Weird Hollywood, and we have a similar thing where we do a truthiness score, and then just like on how much we loved it. And so we'll be talking about The Thing with Grant Levac, who many of you know, next week, next Thursday. In the meantime, if you're a masochist and you want to relive like those brutal several seconds of the UFO hearing where they were trying to show that UFO, you can go check that out on my channel.
Right on.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Jane, I'll see you tomorrow for our episode. Yep. Have a good night.
See you guys tomorrow.
Ciao. Rather be squidding. What do you got?
Yeah, there's a interesting scientific project that is not aimed towards UAP study, but I think it could actually be utilized to potentially find UAP. So I'm digging into that. More details on my channel, Rather Be Squidding, soon.
Excellent. All right, Rather. Well, I'll see you tomorrow, buddy. We got a packed show, that is for sure. We got more reviews coming. More reviews. But all right, cool. We'll see you soon, bud.
See ya.
Cristina Gomez, what are you working on, my lady?
Tomorrow on my show, Mysteries with the History, that I co-host with Jimmy Church, we'll be covering the mysteries of Arizona. And on Friday, the show Strange Paradigms, we will discuss weekly news of mysterious, supernatural UFOs, science, tech, with the one and only Christopher Plain, the head science writer for The Debrief, on Friday. But all that can be found on my channel or on my website, which is right here at strangeparadigms.com.
Awesome. Well, Cristina Gomez, thank you for stopping by and adding your voice to the recaps. It's been fun.
Thanks for having me.
Ciao. Jazz Shaw. What do you got?
Follow me on Twitter at Jazz Shaw. This weekend, either Friday or Saturday, I have an article coming up at The Debrief on a case that we have been investigating for the last more than 2.5 months from the deep recesses of the Project Blue Book files, one that never gets talked about. And we have been spending a lot of time digging and talking to people who are descendants of people that were involved in this one UFO case that has had no attention paid to it. We got some new stuff. Normally I don't plug stuff, but keep your eyes open, because when it comes out, we got some stuff nobody's seen before.
Awesome. I can't wait. Jazz Shaw, I'll see you soon. Thank you for everything.
Thank you for everybody tuning in.
Yep. See you. Thank you. All right, you guys. That was the show. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you haven't already, you stuck around this long. If you haven't subscribed, shared the show, hit that like button, please do it. It goes a very long way to making sure the show continues to grow, not the grow continues to grow. I want to say thank you to everyone in the chat, all of the support there. You guys have been awesome. I want to say thank you to KGRADB. We'll be there live tomorrow from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Tomorrow we're going to be reviewing Above Top Secret, the Stephen Greer film, and we're also going to be reviewing A Tear in the Sky, the film by Caroline Corey, and she's going to be coming in next week and we'll be discussing the film with her. And then we're also going to be talking about reaction to the hearing. There's been a lot of news hits, a lot of interesting discussions. One in particular when Pat McAfee and Congressman, I'm forgetting his last name right now, but it was a half-hour discussion. It was very, very cool. So we'll be going over that, parts of that, and just getting Jane's thoughts on the hearings, and yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking about other stuff. Oh yeah, we've also got Rather's Rants premiering tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, this show will be available on iTunes, Spotify shortly after the show. If you're listening on the road, you got some time, please leave us a rate and review. It goes a long way to making sure the podcast grows. Thank you to the moderators in the chat for keeping it cool. James Doyle, thank you for the super chat, $2 super chat. Tyler Hero is a Palladian. Who was it yesterday that said Celtics in 7? Yeah, I bet you I didn't see any of that today. Anyway, I want to say thank you to my Patreons, my YouTube's members, and to all the super chatters out there. Thank you for donating the almighty dollar. It goes a long way into helping produce this show and letting me, stay here and edit things and talk to you guys and do 3 shows a week when it warrants it. So all of those dollars go to helping produce the show. We truly appreciate your donations. If you can't donate, don't sweat it. There's no paywall here. You get all the same shows that my Patreon members do. There's no special access here. So enjoy all the content. Just like I said, leave us a like, share, subscribe, comment down below if you'd like the show or if you hate the show. Let us know what we can do better. And we will try to do it. With all of that said and all of that out of the way, thank you guys so much for coming aboard, getting weird with us here on another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Your home for credible news, reviews, commentary on everything UAP and UFO. My name's Luis Jimenez. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, stay safe out there, y'all. Oh, also, I just shout out to Chris Lato. We're going to be launching his balloon and NFT on Friday on his channel. So I'll be talking about that a little bit tomorrow, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Chris. That's going to be a really cool event. So stay tuned to make sure you go and subscribe to Chris Lato's channel, the Lato Files. I love the name of that channel. Anyway, all right, you guys have a wonderful night. Love you all. Peace. I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.